Hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me.
Welcome to week 4 of the Bill Neese's Coaches Show. With us now is our head coach, Bill Neese, your host, Chip Hare. Coach, first let's go back into week 3. The Indians go on a Thursday night on the road to Stebbins in first it's our first league game in the Miami Valley League, taking on Stebbins, and then it was also a Thursday night lights game, which was live on television at 7 p.m. Indians get the win 27-10 after what some may call a slow start for the Indians, but we turn it around and dominate, particularly in the second half. Indians come up with a win 27-10. Certainly nice to get the first win, but also Indians go 3-0 on Thursday night lights.
Definitely on all parts. I think the biggest thing is the fact that we overcame, some of our own mistakes at the early part of the game, and after we sat and watched that, the touchdown, it was a great execution on their part, but it was also one of the most elementary plays that we deal with throughout the course of the year, and just didn't play it right. Did not play it right and resulted in a touchdown. The thing was that our players all knew it, and so there was no panic involved in the situation. I thought in the second half our pass rush started to take over. I thought our offensive line started to take over, and I think on both sides of the ball we were able to be more consistent, help the back end on both sides, and that was able to get us a win.
Well, you talk about a very important component. You're down early in the game, you're on the road, and let's not ignore the fact that we're still looking for the first win of the season. That would be something that for a young team and some kids that are getting varsity playing time for the first time, that's not something they've seen before, but for them to be able to respond the way they did, I think that certainly takes a lot into their growth.
It is, and a lot of those young guys that are playing for us are not the average sophomore. They don't talk a whole lot. They're kind of more mature for their age, and they're really well versed in terms of what you can do with them. I think there's probably as coachable a group as we've had in a long time. Not saying anybody else wasn't, but they're just very receptive to everything. And I think when we got together and we said, okay, this is what we did wrong, and it's great that you can sit in sideline and just show somebody on a tablet exactly what happened. There's no indication then like you have to wait for the next day for film and everything. I thought they just responded well. I like the way their attitude is.
But not just sophomores too. You have to look at the upperclassmen because they too make some plays, and they have to have some. They've got to lead those sophomores as to, hey guys, we're not going to panic here. We're not hitting the panic button. We need to get this thing rolling. Yeah,
our juniors and seniors, have stepped in and done a really outstanding job. I think every one of our seniors on our team is contributing in one way or the other, either on a special team, on here. So I think that senior class, although we don't have a lot of them, I think we're very proud of what they've accomplished, in their span. And we've got that big junior class, and those guys are all mixed in there everywhere. So we've got a good combination. But I think the biggest common denominator we have is just the fact that everybody wants to go out and work and go after it, and they preach the motto, and we all preach the motto. All we want to do is win this week. Just worry about this week, and we'll worry about next week.
1 week at a time, and it certainly would be remiss if we didn't mention getting that first win, A, of the season, and B, getting that first win in the league. So now we're 1-0 in the league. Does multitudes for your confidence as a group, not just as the kids, but as a coaching staff and everybody. It's a good feel-good moment, and it gives you that focus on the next week to be a little bit more lasered in.
It definitely does, and no matter who you are, If you lose a football game, you're gonna fine tune everything, and sometimes that's good. Woody Hayes always said, if you're gonna lose, don't lose twice. Lose the game, but also learn from your loss. Yeah. And I think we, as coaches and people in athletics, we do that. But I also think when you win, that gives you the confidence that, hey, what we're doing is the right thing. We're on track. We got the people in the right spot. And all we need to do is just get a little bit better at what we're doing. So I think a win is very important.
Indians now win and go into what we talk about the next one, and that is certainly the big one for us this week, and that is it's Sydney week. The Jackets come to Piqua, and Piqua will host its first Miami Valley League since 1973. We won't talk about where we were at that time, Coach, but that was a long time ago. But ironically, we play Sydney, who we've been in the same league with them since 1926. We've been through a few different leagues, but we are the two schools that have stuck together. There's been even Troy has gone their own way. So there's a storied history. Obviously, it's the play of the battered helmet. That game has become, we talked about this last year, a rivalry, because the game is more of a rivalry because it's been more competitive the last few years.
Yeah.
Big game for us in a lot of different ways. For as a coach, though, it's one game, and that's the only one on the schedule right now.
And I told our players tonight, I said, we're in a rival game, and I said, anytime that you can find something else to motivate you, whether or not it be, you got a cousin on the team, whether or not they're a rival, whether or not you don't like them, this or this. I said, anything, bring it to the table. And I welcome it. I welcome it in because those guys have made this game competitive. Their program has gone leaps and bounds over the last 8-9 years. And, we're very proud to be in two rivalries. And when I say rivalry, I mean, we've got two rivalries now, and we're very proud that we're in both of those situations, and we embrace it.
You talk about that, Coach. There are some programs, that, and we all know a lot of them, they don't have one rivalry. But the fact that we have two of them, and for this year, it kind of worked out. It's kind of spaced out a little bit. There's been some years where we've had to play each other back to back.
Yeah.
It's nice now. It's kind of we're almost in the middle of the year, week 4, and then we don't play Troy until week 10, which is we'll talk more about them later. But it's something that our communities embrace. There's an old shirt that's being out there sold, and people are from the 70s and the 80s are talking about. I remember when we played Sydney, and it's a game that's special to many people for both communities.
It is, and we've discussed before also the fact that there are some people in Piqua who say, hey, it's for me the rivalry is Sydney, and other people say the rivalry is Troy. So we've got twice as many people to keep happy and in the rivalry games. And I think maybe the older generation kind of is more of the Sydney, but now it's coming full circle that we've got a lot of our players that have known these guys, have played sports against them, et cetera, and they've kind of embraced that also because as I said, Sydney is a much improved program, and they've been doing a great job over the last 8-9 years.
Well, they'll come in. This will be their actually first league game, just the way the game is, the way their schedule and our league schedule's gone out. It'll be our first home league game. We'll expect a big turnout. It'll be electric here at Alexander Stadium. We expect good weather. As a coach, I know you prepare each game the same, but it's nice to know that when you run out in that tunnel, our kids run on that tunnel on Friday night, there's going to be close to a sellout potentially, and the fever pitch atmosphere that's out there really makes it extra special.
It will, and the interesting thing I think about it is the fact that you can kind of sit back and look at this and say, well, it's a couple of 1 and 2 teams. What's the big excitement? Well, the big excitement is they lost they went down to the wire with St. Mary's, and were trying to kick a field goal to tie the game to go into overtime. They played a very talented Bellefontaine team. In the same regard, we've went up to Lima, and the last play of the game, we're almost winning the game. I thought we played well for the first part of this, the game against Chaminade Julienne, but I think, obviously they kind of ground us out a little bit later on. But the biggest thing is these are not just two ordinary 1 and 2 teams. I think both of these teams can look back and say, so far, we played some pretty good football. And they, like us, go out and scrimmage and play the best people they can find. They're down at Beaver Creek scrimmaging. They're scrimmaging CJ. We're down in in Springboro and in Northmont. So they don't shy away from any competition just like we do. So it's going to be a very interesting game.
When people come to this game, what should they expect to see from Sydney on the offense and defensive side of the ball?
Well, defensively, they're a multiple defense. They base mostly out of a 50, out of a 3-3 stack. It's kind of a shade in between. I think offensively, they've started out as a 2-back offense and have eventually evolved into a 1-back offense with more of an H-back type set, although they use a tight end, which really in this day and age, I think we're the only people that use tight ends, so it's nice to see somebody else using a tight end. So I think offensively, they spread the ball around. They're pretty balanced run and pass. Their quarterback's at 50%. The running back they have this year currently is the number 1 rusher in the MVL. He's the man right now in the MVL with almost 500 yards rushing in 3 games.
Wow.
So that's a lot. And then they're always going to be dangerous on their return game. They've returned 1 for a touchdown already. And special teams wise, we got to be on guard for everything.
One thing that I have gotten from just Sydney and just a little bit that I've seen is that they do have some tendencies to be explosive. And that can, defensively for us, we really started to see, like we talked about, our defense is really starting to come together and really starting to make some adjustments. Mm-hmm. That's got to make us feel good that I think we're ready for that type of an offense.
It is, and when you actually study them, you look at the fact they've had, I think, maybe three 70-yard runs called back because of a hold, because of a clip, something along those lines. So they have great possibilities of exploding on offense, and we've got to make sure that we keep it in check. Last year they hit us on a long pass, and we were fortunate that we were able to get them on a block punt. But this game could be about special teams, could be about offense, could be about defense. Somewhere in there, you got to be able to make some big plays.
You mentioned special teams, and when I think of the Pickwick Sydney game in the last few years, I think special teams has come in on both sides for both the Jackets and the Indians.
Oh yeah.
This year could be quite the same, and we talk about the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, but we also talked about a couple weeks ago, special teams is very, very, very important.
It is, and it came down to it's pretty much come down to an extra point for the last 2 years, and we know that it could be that same there. I think we're improved in some of our areas in special teams, and hopefully, if that's going to be the edge, then hopefully we'll be able to get it done.
One more thing about Sydney before we talk about the featured player for the week. We talk about this when we play a rival, but this week we're playing Sydney earlier in the year, which is a little different from when we typically play them. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things going on. It's Sydney week, so there's activities throughout the week, including the old Burn the Bee or Stomp Sydney bonfire. Little activities like that, as you talk about, you kind of embrace it and bring it to the table, but there's also a balancing act that the kids have to do on their end to enjoy it, but also get ready to play on Friday night.
I think so, and those guys do that every day. Matter of fact, today's discussion in our Monday meeting was just that fact. Don't get sloppy with your personal life, meaning don't start trying to step a little bit later, don't get up a little later, miss breakfast. I forgot to bring my lunch to school. I'll hit it tomorrow. I'm going to eat some junk food today. All those things along those lines. Do stuff that you have to do in your classroom. Get everything done. And part of the deal now is this week, go where you're supposed to go, but then make sure you get your rest. The most important thing is you have a healthy mind and body ready to go for Friday night.
Because all these things that we talk about, and Spectrum's going to be here on Friday night. There's a lot of people that have an interest in this game. The communities are getting into it. Sydney's doing their own thing. Of course, we've got a lot of things going on here with the T-shirt and like the bonfire and all those things. But at the end of the day, you have to be ready to play in a game that nobody will talk about all those extra stuff, but they will talk about the game a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah, and that's your responsibility as a player, and that's our responsibility as a coaches, is we need to make sure that they enjoy it, that we don't limit what they're going to do. In terms of, no, you can't do this, but on the other hand, we've got to be reasonable and we've got to be sensible in what we're doing.
Let's talk about one of those players in particular who is coming off a fantastic game on Thursday, Caron Coleman. Caron's been a guy that has really stepped up, particularly we've noticed him a lot more this year in terms of just making plays. And I think last year he certainly was a guy that was growing in the program. What have you seen from Caron this year, and what do you expect to see from him the rest of this year?
What I see from him is a difference in his quickness, number one. He's a weight room fiend. He does not miss a day. He loves to talk weight room. You know, he'll slide down to me and say, "Hey, I saw something. What do you think about this? Something about a rep scheme. Something about this. Something about this." He loves that aspect of it. He likes the nutrition. He likes all the other things involved. And so he's really become a student of the game, and that has made him an outstanding player. He does not get tired. He's really our true two-way player, and Tanner Kemp may be starting to get into that role, but Caron just does not get tired. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. Defensively, it's hard to say you're just never going to make a mistake because so many things happen so fast that you're going to do something. A perfect example: Stebbins hit a pass on us Friday, and it was Caron's fault. And you look down 15 yards downfield, and Caron made the tackle. He turned around, went and ran the guy down and made the tackle. So he gives us a lot of speed and a lot of maturity out on the field. I think that's the biggest thing that we see differently from him last year.
That's the one thing I noticed about Caron is his quiet leadership. And he's not that loud guy, but he's also a guy that people look and respect because of what he does, in the weight room, and then transforms it on the field. Yeah,
and also transforms it in the classroom too. He's probably one of our top scholars on our football team. We're really proud. He's always walking around with a gigantic book, and he's always doing something. So Caron is a well-rounded guy.
Yeah, intellect. Nice to have those in your locker room for more ways than one.
Yes, it is. I try to surround myself as many intellectual people as possible.
Coach, we certainly wish you luck as we go into what will be another big game for the Indians, but the battle of the battered helmet has become an even more special game here in the last few years, and we certainly wish you well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. We're going to come back for part two. We're going to talk to Caron. We're going to talk a little bit about that quiet, intellectual leadership. Welcome to part two of the Bill Neese's Coaches Show. We are now with the player feature portion of the program. I'm going to have our player introduce themselves with their position.
I'm Caron Coleman. I play running back and outside linebacker.
Caron is, we come off a big win on Thursday against Stebbins. Big win in a lot of ways for us. Obviously, it's the first win of the season, but it's the first league win, so we're 1-0 in the league. What was that like to get that first win as we roll into conference play now?
It was a confidence boost. We found out more of what we can do well and what we need to do better. It was a cool experience being on TV Thursday night and having a little bit of time after the rest. And but we practiced on Sunday, so it was a little bit of change of a pace the week prior, the week leading up to, and
Caron, as you just alluded to, we played live on Thursday Night Lights against Stebbins on television. So your practice was actually backed up. So you started on a Sunday practice on Sunday. That was your Monday, and Tuesday was your Monday, and so on and so forth. So you did get that extra day. How was that as a player? Your day was off a little bit, and your routine was off, but was it worth it in the end for you?
Yeah, we obviously you don't want to go into a game feeling a little bit unprepared.
Sure.
You don't want any doubts in your head, and we practice the same. We have our special teams, offense, defense, everything Monday, then offense practice, defensive practice, and pre-game practice leading up to the game. So everything was basically the same. It was just one day in advance.
So we get the win on Thursday against Stebbins, 27-10 in a convincing fashion in the second half. We roll into what will be our first Miami Valley League, first home Miami Valley League game since 1973. I know you weren't around, but that's a long time. There's a storied history here between the Jackets and the Indians. What's it like for you knowing you're going out there to play a big ball game this Friday in front of what could be a huge crowd?
Well, it's a big rivalry game, a lot of emotion, and we don't want to lose that game. It's means a lot to do during the week leading up to it. we want to stay focused, control what we can control, and have a good game.
Caron, as we talk a little bit about the position you play, you have a couple different coaches that you engage with. What's that like for you? And talk a little bit about what coaches have really made an impact on you as a player here at Pickwick.
It's our head coach, Bill Neese. We're around him all day. He's a role model for us. He's a cool guy, always there for us when we need him. He's tough on us just because we got to get better. And then there's my outside linebacker coach, Rick Krejci, the older guy. He's a good coach, gets on you about anything and everything he can point out to get you better. Then we got my running back coach and our offensive coordinator, Travis Neese and Troy Ull, and both teachers at school. So we're around them all day, and they're good role models.
Yeah, you're around a lot of guys that have been around the game a long time, and you've got a mixed bag. And I heard you say, hey, they're good guys, but they're also very demanding. They expect a lot of you. They expect your best every time out at practice and at games. And for you, it's not just a season that starts in August and ends in October or November.
Yeah.
It's all year round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're lifting all year. We're watching film, doing different stuff throughout the year, just getting prepared all year round.
Before we close this out, let's talk a little bit about the expectations for this year for you. Here we are. We're won our first conference game. Now we're 1-0 in the league. What's the mindset as we go into the next 7 games?
Well, we're trying to win the last 7 games. We finished 8-2, but we want to take it one game at a time, control what we can control, and just not don't get distracted for anything too far down the season. Just take it one game at a time and win one game at a time.
All right, Caron, thank you very much for joining us. We certainly wish you luck Friday night. And
thank you.
Right here at Alexander Stadium on Friday night will be the game, the Battle of the Battered Helmet between the Jackets and the Indians. Kickoff will be at 7 o'clock p.m. You will be able to catch the replay on Monday night here on the Indian Nation station. For Caron, I am your host, Chip Hare. We will look forward to seeing you on Friday night. Have a good night, everybody.